Now that the trivial Super Bowl is over, we can get back to what we really want to talk about, and that's college football recruiting.
Are Locked On Bama, your daily podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back into Locked On Bama. Luke Robinson, this is me. Jimmy Stein, this is him. Jimmy, how are you today?
Good for someone that doesn't have arms.
That is true. Things could be better for you. I want to thank you for making us your first.
This is freaking me out.
Thank you for making us your first listen. Jimmy is armless, and that's okay because he's not a wide receiver or a quarterback. I'll tell you who is a quarterback, and that's Air Noland, who is one of Alabama's top targets at quarterback for 2024. This is a kid that really I've heard his name associated with Auburn a lot in the past and haven't heard his name associated with Alabama a ton. On the On3 consensus, he's the number 164 player in the country, number 12 quarterback, and On3 has him as number 95 quarterback and number 8, or number 95 national, number 8 quarterback. Lord. He's looking at Alabama, Ole Miss, UCF, Miami, Texas A&M. I think Auburn has cooled now that they've got Walker White from Arkansas. And I just think maybe for whatever reason, maybe the Hugh Freeze's staff wasn't quite as high on him. But I know he's a good player. He's a lefty, which is interesting. He's 6'2", 190 from Langston Hughes High School in Fairburn, Georgia. And he also has a teammate that is a safety in Jakob Gude, and that is spelled Gude, which is very odd, but okay, I'll take it. And he's not super highly rated yet, but we think he's going to get a pretty big bump. So, Jimmy, what do you think about these two guys, and how would it affect Julian Saban, who Alabama already has committed as a quarterback from California?
Yeah, it doesn't really, I don't think, affect the Julian Saban recruitment at all. There's a lot of changes in college football. I mean, a lot of changes. And I think most of the people listening to the show have been following college football and college football recruiting for a long time, certainly before all these changes. By changes, I mean NIL and the transfer portal and realignment and all this stuff. But what I mean is we have to change the way we view recruiting and the methodology and the whole philosophy behind it. And the fact of the matter is, for years, you would just sign one quarterback in a class. I mean, that was kind of the idea, right? Every year you sign one, and that way you always have 4 or 5, which is the ideal number. And most quarterbacks want just one quarterback in the class, and they can kind of be the guy that's in their class. But times have changed with this transfer portal and the number of players that leave. Sometimes you have to sign more than one, depending on what's going on inside your program. And secondly, with NIL, maybe Julian Saban is committed to us, every day for a year, and he loves us so much and he can't wait to get here. And then 12 hours before he, signs, someone shows up with the Rashada deal, $13 million, and he signs somewhere else. So you've got to recruit more quarterbacks than you did in the past. You have to be prepared to sign multiple quarterbacks in one class. There's also this. Half the quarterbacks you sign in the future are probably going to be kids out of the portal. Might be best to have good relationships with everybody to recruit out of the portal 2 or 3 years from now. So really everything about recruiting and quarterback recruiting in particular has changed. So I think Alabama loves Julian Saban. I think they would love that Saban is the only quarterback in this class, but there's no 100% guarantee that Saban is going to sign with Alabama. So you better cast a pretty wide net. I'm not even saying Air Noland is a backup plan to Saban. I'm saying you might sign Air Noland along with Saban, but you certainly don't recruit him like he's the second pick or the backup pick. You recruit him and recruiting all the way up until you're ready to say, hey, we would like you to commit to us. Maybe that never happens, but I'm sure that's the relationship with Air Noland. Jakob Gude is a guy Alabama likes a ton, by the way. Recruiting rankings, I beg people this to no avail every year, but don't get too obsessed with where kids are ranked today, even in the so much evaluation left to be done. There's so many more offers. We hadn't even got to the spring evaluation period where coaches hit the road really spending a lot of time evaluating these 2024 guys. Don't get too caught up in rankings right now. Use them as sort of a guide and not a definitive statement, because they're not. Look, we're 10 months away from these kids signing, 10 months. So 10 months before the NFL draft, is that a good time for Mel Kiper and Todd McShay to say, these are the final grades. This is it. This is it. Don't come looking anymore before April, because these are the final grades. No, they keep evaluating guys and re-ranking and doing mock drafts all the way up till a week before the draft. Signing day is the same thing. I mean, it's 10 months away. And younger kids change more than the older kids do. That younger kid, I've seen them be completely different kids in 2 months, too wrapped up in the rankings. Now, that said, Alabama likes Gude a lot. He's probably been in their camp as a young player. Alabama offered before a lot of other power programs did. I know this kid's tight with Brian Branch, ironically, being that he's a safety from Georgia, just like Branch. He's a real interesting kid. My feeling is, based on how early things are, I'd be surprised if Alabama's pushing for a commitment already. Really, the only kids today that Alabama wants to push for a commitment are slam dunk, obvious, oh, you got to take this guy while you have the opportunity to. There's no reason to be stretching for kids now. Again, you haven't even had your June camp, your spring evaluation period. So Alabama's still building its board, building confidence in the board, gathering information. And of course, the staff, good chance they're meeting today, as Monday, as we record this, good chance the staff's meeting today. And they're probably mostly talking about spring practice, which is going to start really 4 weeks. 1 month from this week. So, spring practice is going to be here really soon. I'm super excited about that.
Yeah, look, that is the good news, right? There's just not a ton of an off season anymore, and it has been better because, number one, recruiting's always been awesome, so that certainly has helped. Football's been great, which has helped, but now basketball's really good too. The gymnastics team, we don't talk a ton about them, or baseball unless they do something good, but hey. There's always something going on at the university, which is a big positive. Let me tell everybody about Built Bar. If you're looking for a delicious treat but don't want all the fat and calories, and you got to try Built Bar. They're awesome. Go try one. We just got through the holidays, and I know my goal is to eat a little bit better. I don't exactly always meet that goal, but one thing that does help me meet that goal is eating Built Bars, because they're so doggone good and they're so easy, and you can get them at Sam's. You can get them at Walmart. You can get them online. You can get them at built.com. Wherever you want to get delicious, nutritious awesomeness, you can probably get a Built Bar. You don't even have to go to built.com anymore if you don't want to, or Amazon. Again, you can just go to Walmart, Sam's, whatever. They come in all these cool flavors like churro or peanut butter brownie or coconut almond. Those things sound like things you get in the impulse aisle at a convenience store. And you're like, oh, this has got to be awful for you. No, it's fantastic for you, and it's delicious. It's like somebody said, oh, gosh, I wish I could have a Mounds bar, but they make me fat. Oh, here's one that doesn't make you fat. It's even healthy, and it's awesome, and it's even better. And here you go. And you go, oh, my God, marry me. That's what happened. Built Bar, the bar that gets you hitched. That's not on the tagline. I just made that up.
I like it, though.
Anywho. Want to tell everybody to check out Locked On College Basketball. A lot of stuff going on in basketball. There'll be a lot of bracketology out today. So go check that out, Locked On College Basketball. So, Jimmy, let's talk a little bit more recruiting here. KJ Lacey was at this event. KJ Lacey is teammates with Ryan Williams. I think KJ Lacey is awesome. Again, state champion this year with Saraland. Of course, Ryan Williams was the show. We all know this, but that's okay. There is a certain rapport that is developed between these two guys who are in the exact same class. KJ Lacey, a 2025 guy, and Saraland is where they play. And so they play a lot of really good competition if you're unfamiliar with Alabama high school. He's 6 feet, 165 right now. I know that sounds a little bit light. Again, he's just ending his sophomore year, so be patient a little bit with that. He's certainly going to grow. And he loved the fact that he got this Alabama offer. I feel like he's probably, it sounds like he's an Alabama fan at least. And he likes the Tommy Rees hire, the new offensive coordinator. So I think that's awesome. He wants to visit a lot of places: Tennessee, A&M, Clemson, Florida, Georgia, Ohio State, USC. He certainly. And look, all those are places that, like, if I were being recruited, that's where I'd want to go. So I don't take like, oh my God, it's going to be such a battle for him. I think it will be a battle, but not like a just all-out bloodbath. So I feel like Alabama wants KJ Lacey. They'll have a good shot at him. And the fact that he has a relationship with Ryan Williams cannot hurt, right?
Yeah, I don't think there will ever be an issue. And I know KJ a little bit. He's a QB country kid. I'm really familiar with him. He's also he's from Daphne, where I'm from. And so between KJ being a QB country kid and from Daphne, and he later transferred, and moved across the bay and to play for, at Saraland. There should never be an Alabama fan that wonders what KJ Lacey's favorite program is. I mean, I think it's been obvious from his public comments, from the very fact that he wears jersey number 9 when he plays for Saraland because he's such a Bryce Young fan. That's a public thing that he's acknowledged. I wear number 9 because I love Bryce. So KJ is a big Alabama fan. Or an Alabama fan. But look, these kids make business decisions, and I used to call them business decisions before NIL. Now with NIL, it's a literal business decision. But KJ is going to go wherever KJ and his people determine is best. KJ has a career. Our careers in football is being a fan of a certain school. He have a literal career. So he has to pick the right offense for him. He has to pick the coach that he feels will develop possible. I'm sure KJ has NFL dreams, and even though he's a little guy, he has that sort of upside, that sort of ability. So we'll see what happens when it comes to him choosing the college. He's got to do what's best for him, but I know he's going to give Alabama a long listen. One of his best pals is Ryan Williams, who will almost be certainly playing at Alabama. There are other Saraland kids in his class that may end up being Alabama priorities. A little running back, Sante McWilliams, offered by Michigan in the 9th grade. Antonio Coleman is my favorite over at Saraland in that class, and hasn't gotten a lot of attention yet. He's a 6'2", 265-pound 10th grade defensive tackle that was starting in the 9th grade there. He's fantastic. Another wide receiver.
Let me stop you there. Let me stop you. Antonio Coleman, yep. Is he any relation to the Antonio Coleman that played for Auburn many moons ago?
Yeah, he's not. And I knew when I first saw Antonio play and heard his name, I believe so. I even asked, to be honest, I asked Sherman Williams. I say Sherman is, so Sherman is who I asked.
Wait a minute. You have done so much. You've done so much wrong in this. You said, is he related to Antonio Coleman? You go, no, he's not. And then you said, I asked Sherman Williams, and the tagline for Sherwin Williams now is Ask Sherwin Williams. And I know this because we deal with Sherwin Williams a lot. There was so much wrong with what you did. And so much free advertising. I'm going to have to send a bill to Sherwin Williams now.
Well, Sherman tells me that they're not related. Sherman tells me that they're not related. But Coleman is a great prospect. Like I said, 6'2", 265. He's now, for the first time, of course, he just completed the 10th grade. He's now racking up some Power 5 offers. And I think that's going to be another kid Alabama takes a long look at, who's a wide receiver at Saraland opposite Ryan Williams. Really good player, totally overshadowed by Ryan. But C.D. Gill is probably an SEC level player, certainly an FBS player. So all these kids are at Saraland. They're all in the same grade. I think they could all end up together somewhere. Alabama would be a location they would obviously all seriously consider. Unbelievable group over there. But KJ, another good weekend for him. He will be a national elite player despite his size. And look, I think some of it's the number 9 on his jersey. Most of it is his size. And some of it is just literally the point guard skill set. He's also, like Bryce, Luke, this is funny too. He's a really good athlete. He doesn't like to run the ball. He doesn't like to run. He does it just exactly as Bryce said. KJ doesn't want to be pigeonholed as an athlete who happens to play quarterback. He wants to be quarterback, period. He doesn't like to run, but he's a heck of an athlete, just like Bryce. If KJ just wanted to run all the time, he'd be running for 100 yards a week. I mean, he's a really good athlete who doesn't run. He has incredible arm strength. He can throw the ball from multiple arm angles. He's a leader. He's charismatic, just like Bryce. He kind of carries himself like, wow, when you see KJ in person, you're like, he's a star. That kid's a star. I love him. I hope he ends up at Alabama selfishly, but also, want KJ because he's one of our kids at QBC. I want KJ to end up at a place that helps KJ the most. Hopefully that ends up being Alabama.
Yeah, I'm very pro KJ Lacey being on this team too. And again, I'm going to keep coming back to this. Feel sort of the same way about Ladarius Fineline. I know that the basketball player just recently committed to Auburn. I know that there's at least talk, and I have reason to believe Alabama didn't pursue maybe quite as heavily as Auburn did. I don't know that he would have chosen Alabama anyway. He might have just wanted to go to Auburn. But I'm very, very pro. Let's get back in this Alabama, keeping Alabama kids in Alabama train, because when Saban leaves, I don't want to be facing this incredible uphill battle about trying to get back into high schools. That's what worries me. But Jimmy, now I want to tell everybody about FanDuel. Look, yesterday FanDuel had a lot of great promotions on the Super Bowl, and they really were out there a lot commercial wise. I thought it was cool. But now we're midway in the NBA season, and it's a perfect time to download FanDuel. It's America's #1 sports book, so why wouldn't you download it? Because new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your bet doesn't win. Say that 3 times real fast. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. It really is super easy to use. Build and discuss, build your FanDuel account, and then you can discuss about how much money you've made after you've done all that. FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with same-game parlay. I mean, that's some of that micro-betting stuff that a lot of people are into right now. So don't miss the chance to get your no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel. They're the official sports betting partner of the NFA and NBA. Notice I said the NFA, whatever the heck that is. But the NBA, they are the official sports betting partner. I'm sorry, sports betting partner. If I knew how to edit this, I would. I don't. It should make it more memorable. Please don't fire me, Tegna. But they are also the official sports betting partner of the NFL as well. So the NFL and the NBA, that should tell you how good FanDuel is. Go check out FanDuel.com/lockedon. Go do it right now. Jimmy, it'd be crazy for us not to talk a little bit about the Super Bowl from yesterday. I do find the irony in the fact that I tweeted out a video of Andy Burcham from the Auburn Radio Network really losing his mind a couple of times about some officiating in the Alabama-Auburn game, which really just wasn't that poorly officiated. It just wasn't. It was fine. He was losing his mind about it, and it got a lot of traction. I mean, my tweets normally don't get a lot of traction because I'm not very intelligent, but this one was just funny, and it got a lot of traction. And then, so all this talk about officiating in, the Iron Bowl of basketball, which is a game on the surface that doesn't mean a ton. It means a ton to you and me and people who listen to this and Auburn fans or whatever. It means a ton to them. But like the grand scheme of things, it doesn't mean a ton. The Super Bowl officiating means everything. Like it's more important than Chinese weather balloons flying over Lake Huron. It is a big deal. Like you got to be, it's a big deal, right? So I just don't know how we don't discuss the fact that a late call is really what won the Super Bowl for Kansas City. Again, the letter of the law, I think the call is right. The guy who committed the penalty, the defensive holding penalty for the Eagles, he even said, "Yeah, I held him. I wish they hadn't seen it." But I can't help but be disappointed that the call was made, number one, because we've certainly seen worse calls. And number two, because that game was so awesome. And to have it end it was over when that call was made. It was essentially over. Yes, some things could have happened. He could have missed the field goal. I think it was Jerick McKinnon that he could have scored a touchdown and maybe given the Eagles a chance. And say he did the right thing by sliding down and letting the clock run down to as low as it could, and then they kicked the field goal. But, man, I just hate that Super Bowl ends that way. And, again, the more I think about it and the more I'm trying to be pro-referee, like, hey, you got to call what you see. You know, if you saw it, you got to call it. You can't be like, what if it was – I mean, if he had tugged it a little more, you'd call it. And if he tugged it a little less, you wouldn't call it. I mean, if it's in the rules, I guess you got to call it if you see it. But, man, it really was a downer that because it was set up. If he doesn't make that call, right, they got to go with like a minute and 30 left. Jalen gets the ball back with Devontae and AJ, and they have a shot to make this one of the more classic Super Bowls in history. Instead, they get the automatic first down, and they essentially just get to run the clock out. And then an NFL kickers who are very, very good at their jobs, he's not going to miss a 17-yarder or 19-yarder, whatever the heck it was. And they win the game. And you just hate to see it end that way, right? I mean, again, you can't really yell at the ref. Even though if I were that official, I wouldn't go to Philadelphia in my lifetime. I wouldn't eat a Philly cheesesteak from any location. I wouldn't get Eagles of any description anywhere ever. I wouldn't get near the color green. There are a lot of things I'd stay away from if I were that dude.
Yeah, he's probably not too popular, but the fact that, like, you know, you described it well. I mean, it was a penalty. It wasn't like there's a difference between a phantom call. That phantom calls are the worst to me. That's what gets me. I will lose sleep. I will rant. I'll go nuts. Phantom official throws a penalty and calls a flag and calls a certain penalty, but it did not happen. Replay show that wasn't holding or that wasn't pass interference. You're seeing something that did not happen. There was no contact there at all, and yet you threw a flag. I mean, those are the worst. This isn't the worst. This is a different kind of what I would call bad call. It's a different kind. It's more philosophical, and that's this. I think the best officials in the world, not high school officials, the best officials in the world need to be situationally aware. I think the call lacked situational awareness. And by that, I mean, okay, here's another good. What about holds on the backside of plays? It's situational awareness. Yes, the offensive lineman held the defensive lineman. In no way did it affect the play whatsoever because they ran it to the other side. That guy wasn't going to make the play 40 yards away. No one cared. Was it holding? Well, yeah, it was holding. Did it affect the game in any way? No. Therefore, those flags really shouldn't be thrown for lack of situational awareness. And I think that's where that call was bad. We're deciding the Super Bowl here. Let Mahomes, let Jalen Hurts, let the players on the field decide the outcome of the game, not the officials. Now, that doesn't mean that you just put hey, there's less than 2 minutes left. Everyone just bury your flag deep in your pants because we're not pulling flag. We're not throwing flags the last 2 minutes. That's not what I mean at all. You've got to throw, but I think the standard, Luke, should go from, hey, was that a factor of the law to we are throwing flags for train wrecks only, things that are so obvious, the proverbial Ray Charles could see it. Things that are just blatantly bad that affect the outcome of the game that is definitely a penalty. I feel the same way in college basketball, Luke. I mean, when there's 30 seconds left and your offense has to make a bucket to win the game and there's 30 seconds left, I'm not for officials taking off their whistles, but you only blow it if there is a foul that 15,000 people in the arena saw. Just let the players decide the game when it comes down time for the players to decide who wins the game.
And I think most everybody subscribes to that line of thinking, and I do. But I'll also say this as an official, I'm not an official, but if I were, my counter argument would be, so what you're saying is a foul in the first quarter may not be a foul in the fourth quarter. And that's really hard to judge. And
that is what I'm saying. And yes, it's hard to judge. The whole game's hard to judge. That's why people should really rarely get on officials. They have an impossible job. And I'm not on that guy. I don't think he failed the sport or failed the game. He called a hold that was a hold. He's right. That was a foul. Bradbury admitted it. It's a foul. I'm just saying, let's just have this meeting and re-emphasize to officials in college and pros situational awareness. Not every flag needs to be thrown like the backside holding plays.
I think I could buy your argument a little bit more if you could be animated with your arms, which you clearly did not bring with you to this podcast today.
The funny part about that is why y'all can't see my arms, because they show up really well on the crazy video screen. But the funny thing is I was sort of ranting about that. My arms were flailing I was going all.
You can see your hands. You're high.
That's true.
So anyway, all right, that's going to do it for today's podcast. We will be back tomorrow with more Locked On Bama goodness. And until then, roll tide, everybody.
Roll tide.